All right, welcome everyone. We are at 6 o'clock, so out of respect for everyone's time, I'm going to go ahead and get us started. So good evening again, everyone. My name is Hannah Oden. I'm a Transportation Planning Manager at the Pima Association of Governments, or PAG for short, and I will be one of your hosts today. We are the Greater Tucson Region's Metropolitan Planning Organization. Welcome to PAG's 2055 Regional Mobility and Accessibility Plan, or RMAP, Open House, and thank you for joining us. Today, we'll begin with a brief overview of PAG and then a presentation on the draft 2055 RMAP, followed by a question and answer session where PAG staff will address your questions. Thank you again, everyone, for being here virtually this evening. I'll now turn it over to Jeanette DeWren, PAG's Transportation Planning Director, for more details on how we will address your questions and comments.
Thanks, Hannah, and welcome everyone. This open house provides an opportunity to learn more about what the Regional Mobility and Accessibility Plan, or RMAP for short, is all about and the projects and investments that are proposed to be included. We are currently in the 30-day public comment period for the RMAP, which began on June 14th and ends on July 13th. At the end of the presentation, we'll provide information on how to submit formal comments on the draft plan. Following the presentation, we'll open things up for questions. Please be aware that your microphone will be muted until the question and answer period. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Zonia Kelly, PAG's Administrative Services Manager, and she will provide a brief overview on PAG's Title VI policy.
Thank you, Jeanette. Pima Association of Governments, PAG, complies with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and related statutes and regulations and all programs and activities. PAG operates without regard to race, color, and national origin. PAG meetings are held in accessible locations and materials are provided in accessible formats or in languages other than English upon request within a reasonable advance notice period. Any person who believes his or her Title VI protection has been violated may file a complaint. Any such complaint must be in writing and filed within PAG's Title VI program manager within 180 days following the date of the alleged discriminatory occurrence. Title VI discrimination complaint forms may be obtained from PAG by contacting Pima Association of Governments, Philana Jeremiah, Title VI Coordinator, 1 East Broadway Boulevard, Suite 401. Tucson, Arizona, 85701, at telephone 520-792-1093 or fax 520-620-6981. To view our complete Title VI implementation plan and related policies, please visit the Get Involved section of our website at pagregion.com. If you need help with translation, please call me, Sonia Kelly, at 520-792-1093. La Asociación de Gobiernos de Pima, PAG, cumple con el título 6 de la Ley de Derechos Civiles de 1964 y estatutos y reglamentos relacionados en todos los programas y actividades. PAG funciona independientemente de raza, color, origen nacional o incapacidad. Las reuniones de PAG ocurren en lugares de acceso y los materiales se proporcionan en formatos accesibles o en idiomas distintos de inglés si se recibe una petición antes de la reunión. Cualquier persona que cree que se ha violado su protección bajo el título 6 puede presentar una queja. Esta queja debe ser por escrito con el directivo de título 6 de PAG dentro de los 180 días de la fecha en que se aleja que la discriminación ocurrió. Para recibir formularios de reclamo, por favor, póngase en contacto con la Asociación de Gobiernos de Pima en el domicilio que se presenta. Para consultar el plan completo de implementación de Título 6 y sus políticas correspondientes, visite la sección Get Involved en nuestro sitio web pagregion.com. Si necesita ayuda con traducción, llame por favor al 520-792-1093 y comuníquese conmigo, Sonia Kelly. Thank you, Jeanette.
All right, thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Zonia. Now I'll be kicking off the presentation to provide information on the long-range plan, including information about proposed projects in the draft plan, details on key components of the plan, and additional details on the plan development process. At the conclusion of the presentation, we'll be happy to address any questions that you have. You'll notice in the Zoom dialog box at the bottom that there's a Q&A button, and you can click on that and type your questions in, but we'll take all the questions at the end of the presentation. As mentioned in my introduction, the Pima Association of Governments is the Greater Tucson Region's metropolitan planning organization. PAG has an important responsibility, planning for the region's future to enhance our regional mobility, sustainability, and livability. PAG carries out its planning role by working collaboratively with local, state, and tribal members. We pool our resources and we provide the best data possible for our leaders to make important decisions that set the stage for a healthy economy for our region for years to come. In addition to the Federal Highway Administration's requirements for PAG to serve as the Metropolitan Planning Organization for the region, PAG is the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's designated lead agency for regional air quality, water quality, and solid waste planning for the Tucson metropolitan area. PAG and the Regional Transportation Authority, which is managed by PAG, are governed independently by a nine-member regional council and RTA board shown on this slide. These governing bodies include the chief elected official or appointed official from each member jurisdiction and the governor-appointed Pima County representative from the Arizona State Transportation Board. The 9 leaders work collaboratively to represent the Greater Tucson region in their decisions regarding transportation planning, air quality, water quality, and economic vitality. PAG's mission is to address regional issues and to do so through cooperative efforts and the pooling of our shared resources of our member jurisdictions. We provide accurate and relevant data so that regional planning decisions can be effective and reliable. Now that you have some background on PAG, we'll discuss the 2055 Regional Mobility and Accessibility Plan, also known as the RMAP, which is how we'll refer to it throughout the presentation. The plan is a federally required long-range plan that's updated every 4 years to ensure that we're using the best available data and that the plan accurately reflects changing conditions and the needs of our region. The key component of the RMAP is that it includes jurisdiction-sponsored projects, including current or future RTA projects, which address transportation needs in the Greater Tucson region. These projects are multimodal in nature and cover a range of transportation-related demands and challenges, including safety, congestion, and public transit. We'll discuss that a little bit more in detail later in the presentation. Related to the proposed projects included in the long-range plan, the RMAP must be fiscally constrained. And this means that anticipated funding sources must match the anticipated costs of the projects. So the anticipated funding over the life of this long-range plan, which is a 30-year time period, is expected to be approximately $16.2 billion. Again, this is a mix of federal and state resources, as well as RTA, local, and other resources that are collected over that 30-year planning period. The inclusion of the proposed projects in the RMAP does not mean that designated funds have been allocated to complete those projects, but rather that the projects are eligible to receive regional funding. The specific allocation of funding for the projects takes place during PAG's Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP, development process. The TIP development process is a 5-year schedule of proposed improvements and a budget, and that's updated every 2 to 3 years. The key components of the 2055 RMAP are shown on this slide. The plan outlines state and federal requirements, summarized public engagement efforts and results, includes a breakdown of the financial plan and funding sources, existing and anticipated future conditions of our region and the transportation system, a detailed chapter on public transit, the demonstration of air quality conformity and environmental considerations, project lists that include in-plan projects, which are our jurisdictional priorities, as well as reserve projects, which are projects that are still important to our member jurisdictions, but aren't necessarily priorities at this time. Aviation-related projects, a performance measure report that tracks approximately 40 different metrics related to things such as land use, safety, and environmental stewardship, goals and strategies, and a Title VI analysis to make sure that there are no disproportionate or unfair impacts to protected populations. Community involvement and input is critical to any planning process. The primary outreach for the 2055 RMAP was conducted last summer with an engagement survey that offered both online and a paper version. We received nearly 4,500 responses to that survey. In addition to promoting the survey in English and Spanish through a regional multimedia campaign, PAG conducted additional outreach targeted to disadvantaged community members through 13 in-person events to ensure that everyone had a chance to participate. We heard lots of good comments and feedback, and a small selection of that is shown here on the screen. We heard support for expanding transit service, along with some concerns for safety, the desire for more bicycle paths, and the need for better maintained roads. The top priorities we heard from respondents, which are illustrated in the next couple slides, was a desire to improve roadway condition, reduce travel time across town, and improve safety on our roadways and intersections. The 2055 RMAP responds to what we heard from the public by including $430 million for roadway rehabilitation region-wide, $325 million for multimodal safety enhancements, and projects that address capacity, transit, and active transportation, such as bikes and pedestrians, and technology to improve traffic flow. One question the survey asked was for respondents to rank their top 3 transportation priorities from a range of options. As you can see on this slide, improved roadway conditions was ranked as the top priority, followed by reduced crosstown travel time and improve road and intersection safety. Respondents were also asked to divvy up 100 hypothetical dollars to fund transportation-related improvements. Similar to the previous question, improving existing roads received the most amount of funding, followed by safety improvements and reducing congestion. As mentioned earlier in the presentation, the RMAP must be fiscally constrained. The priority projects for member agencies are included in what we call the in-plan project list. And these projects, the cost of these projects cannot exceed the reasonably expected revenues over that 30-year time frame of the plan, which is approximately $16.2 billion. Essentially, this means that we cannot spend more money on projects than what we anticipate in revenues that we collect over that time frame. As you can see by the chart on this slide, anticipated funding for the RMAP comes from a variety of funding sources, including federal, state, local, and regional funding, with the regional funding making up the greatest percentage. Regional funding largely comes from the half-cent RTA sales tax, and the RMAP assumes the collection of the sales tax over the duration of the plan. We now want to move on to highlight some of the projects that are included in the 2055 RMAP. The map on this slide shows the location of the proposed projects by what type of street they are located on, such as freeways, larger arterial streets such as 22nd Street, and smaller collector streets such as parts of 29th Street or Marion Cleveland Way. The map also shows the location of intersections and interchange improvements and transit projects, including the proposed bus rapid transit project from the Tohono Tadai Center to the Tucson International Airport. An important note is that the map only shows projects that have a designated or specific location. The RMAP includes many additional projects, which are essentially categorical projects, such as safety improvements, bike lanes, sidewalks, and bridge repair. These are funded in different buckets of funding. How or when we select categorical projects is flexible, and we provide the designated funding as needs arise based on the projects identified during the life of the RMAP. As you can see by the list on this slide, the long-range plan includes various transportation projects, including projects proposed by the RTA for a new 20-year period, as well as ADOT capital improvement projects. The plan also includes projects that address public transportation expansion and high-capacity transit, expanded investments in active transportation, improvements to expand roadway capacity and modernize our transportation system to reduce congestion, and funding for wildlife linkages and environmental mitigation. Building off the last slide, this graphic shows some highlights from the proposed investments included in the RMAP. The plan includes $800 million for active transportation improvements that could provide up to 150 miles of bike lanes or protected bike paths and up to 200 miles of sidewalks. $5.5 billion for public transit operations and maintenance, facility improvements and expansion, and 14 traffic interchange projects on our freeways. And it includes $2.1 billion for multimodal roadway capacity improvements, which comes out to about 211 miles. With that, I'm going to pass the presentation over to Hannah. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Annette. So as mentioned earlier, the RMAP is a data-driven plan, and we look at how our region will grow over the next 30 years and the impacts of the proposed projects on our transportation network. So the maps on this slide are included in the draft RMAP and show where our current population is concentrated and where we expect to grow by 2055. So over the next 30 years, we expect to add approximately 180,000 new people to the region, with key growth areas in the Central Core, out east by Houghton Road in the Vail community, and in the Marana area to the northwest, which is shown on the map on the right-hand side of the slide. So similar to the last slide, these maps from the draft RMAP show the distribution of jobs currently and what we expect in 2055. So as you can see by the map on the right-hand side of the slide, key growth areas for employment include Marana, areas along the I-10 corridor, areas in the southeast part of the region, areas near the Tucson International Airport, and southwest along Ajo Highway and the Valencia Road corridor. And as we look at how our region will grow, it's important to understand the impacts of the proposed projects. This slide shows congestion, both current and projected, under two future scenarios. The map on the left-hand side of the slide shows our current congestion today. And as you can see, congestion is mainly concentrated on the interstate during busy travel times. The middle map shows what congestion would look like in 2055 if no proposed RMAP projects were built. The map on the right shows anticipated congestion if the RMAP projects were constructed by 2055. So while there is still an increase in congestion with the RMAP projects, which is mainly concentrated on the interstates and some main arterial roads, the congestion is anticipated to noticeably increase if no proposed RMAP projects are completed. So the key takeaway here is that the proposed RMAP projects do respond to our anticipated population and employment growth to mitigate or minimize congestion. We also look at air quality as part of the RMAP development process because our regional air quality is important, and PAG is subject to federal requirements to monitor air quality. Specifically, PAG monitors particulate matter such as tiny particles of dust, smoke, and other pollutants that are suspended in the air in the RETO planning area, which is located by Marana and Picture Rocks as shown on the map on this slide. We conducted an analysis as part of the RMAP development to ensure that there are no significant air quality impacts from new projects. So the last main component of the plan that we want to cover is related to performance measures. So as mentioned earlier in the presentation, the RMAP tracks nearly 40 performance measures related to things such as safety, job accessibility, congestion, and vehicle emissions. Each performance measure has a target, which is where we want to be as a region by 2055. A couple examples of targets are reducing total serious injuries by 25% and reducing on-road greenhouse gas emissions by 30% by 2055. A detailed performance summary report can be found in Appendix 4 of the RMAP, but the images on this slide show 4 performance measures the RMAP tracks, or we are on pace as a region to meet the 2055 targets. These are increasing the percentage of the population within a quarter mile of a transit stop, increasing the total miles of bicycle facilities, maintaining the reliability of freight, so those are things like delivery vehicles and semis that are moving within our transportation network, and reducing the number of public bridges in poor condition. Now we'll review where we're at in the RMAP process. So this slide shows a timeline of the RMAP development process since January of this year and where we are at today, which is shown by the orange star. So we're currently in the public comment period and anticipate a public hearing and possible plan adoption by the PAG Regional Council at the end of July. So what are we looking for from you during this public comment period? We, of course, welcome you to review the entire draft plan as we are looking to gather public feedback on the content of the document. And as PAG staff, we will review all comments and feedback we receive within the public comment period and will address comments in the document as feasible. We will also provide all comments and PAG staff responses to elected officials in advance of the Regional Council meeting, a Regional Council public hearing. I also want to emphasize that the RMAP development is a continuous cycle. So as soon as the 2055 RMAP is adopted, we'll start planning for the next one. So any feedback and comments that we receive as part of this process will also be considered for future long-range transportation plans. So the public comment period runs until this Sunday, which is July 13th. So be sure to review the draft document at pagregion.com and submit any comments via email to info@pagregion.com. The QR code on this screen will take you to the public notice page on the PAG website where you can find the full RMAP document and instructions to submit your comments. There's also a video up on the designated 2055 RMAP microsite, so feel free to check that out as well. Again, we anticipate a public hearing and possible adoption of the 2055 RMAP at the Regional Council meeting on July 31st at noon. So thank you again for taking the time to attend this virtual open house. For more information about the RMAP process, please feel free to contact myself or Jeanette at the email addresses on your screen. Jeanette will be our moderator for the Q&A today. So with that, we'll go ahead and move on to the question and answer portion of the open house. And Jeanette, I'll turn things over to you.
Thank you, Hannah. And thank you all for participating and hearing our presentation. We'll leave this slide up right here with our contact information. Feel free to reach us here or at the PAG website, pagregion.com. And Zonia also will be available if anybody has any questions in Spanish. As I mentioned earlier, we have a Q&A box on your Zoom link. So at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a little window, looks like a little square with a question mark and says Q&A at the bottom. So if you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and type those right there in the Q&A chat, and Hannah and I will answer any questions that you have. We will also be here until 7 p.m. So we are going to hang out and be available for questions for the remainder of the hour. So feel free to hop in whenever you think of something you'd like to ask us. I'm not seeing anybody have any questions at the moment, but like I said, we'll stick around till 7 p.m. So if you have any thoughts or questions, feel free to type them in the chat, or of course, email them to us at any point between now and the 13th. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us. Also, just wanted to let you know that any questions that we receive, we will be providing those to our elected officials as part of their review process. So we'll be documenting all the questions and the answers and providing those to our regional council as well. So we really thank you for your participation. And you can either type those questions into the chat here, or of course, anytime email Hannah or myself, reach out to us at info@pagregion.com. Or contact us through our website or phone, and we're happy to answer any questions that you have now or within the next few weeks as we prepare for the approval of the document. If there's any questions. Oh, we have a question. Thank you, John, for your question. What was the source of the population projections used for the study? That's a great question, John. We work with the AOEO, so the Arizona Office of Economic Opportunity, with the state demographer's office to develop the population projections for our long-range plan. And in doing so, we actually take those numbers that we get from the state and we review them with all 9 of our jurisdiction partners through what we call our population technical subcommittee. So every town here in the region has a representative, and we bring that information with the state demographer to the group for review. Those numbers then go through our regional council for approval. So yeah, that's where those numbers come from. So we work with the state demographers, make sure we get those as accurate as we can. Thank you for your question. Alex, thank you for your question. How important is passing RTA next for this plan? And what are things that PAG are doing in order to try to get to the pass if it is needed? So this plan is a federally required long-range plan that we do every 4 years. So we make an assumption that the RTA next passes just for the sake of projecting our revenue. So the RTA is one funding source that's considered in the development of our long-range plan. So we will, when we update this plan in 4 years, we'll have new information. So we'll know if the RTA next passes or not. But that $16.2 billion fiscal constraint number that we have in the plan does assume that that continuation will happen. So without those funds, many of the projects that are in the current project list will not be able to be delivered. So if the RTA next passes, it'll look, long range plan project list will probably look pretty similar. If not, we'll have to make some decisions about what the priorities are moving forward. And then what are we as PAG doing in order to get the RTA next pass? So if I'm reading your question correctly, us as PAG and RTA staff, we provide education on the RTA and on the work of the RTA board. We can't advocate, meaning we can't go out there and solicit people to vote for the RTA, but what we can do is provide education on what is in the plan and what it means for our region. And we can also speak to the impacts that those projects will have in terms of the economic impacts that those projects would bring, as well as impacts to our transportation network. So will the projects address safety, or will they address roadway condition or congestion? And those are the kinds of things that we can do as PAG staff to help educate the community on first of all, what the RTA is and what the RTA next plan includes. You're welcome. Thank you all so much for joining us. As I mentioned earlier, we'll be here until 7, so we'll stick around if you have any other questions. We're happy to answer them, and do check out the plan. It is quite a big document, but there's a lot of information in there that we hope is useful, not just for us here at PAG, but for our community as well. Thank you all once again. We'll be here till 7. Our contact information is up on the screen. Of course, check us out at pagregion.com. The PDF version of the full plan is located on our website, along with a video that explains the long range plan and the process. Okay, we received a question. Thank you, John, for your question. I'll read it for the group. There are growth areas in the state land south of I-10 that is going through the entitlement process with the city right now. There do not seem to be any roads presented in this version of the planning area. Would the city be responsible for submitting these plans? Yes, they would. So we would look for our jurisdiction partners to submit any new roads for the network or any proposed projects. We also do get projects submitted from ADOT as well. So sometimes we'll get, from the city or the county, but also from ADOT on new projects there. It's also important to point out that in the RMAP, we do have a lot of money that is what we consider categorical money. So that money isn't necessarily designated for a specific road, but could be used for improvements in the future. So those monies are available to accommodate any sort of future project that might not be shown right now. And then, of course, we do go back to the jurisdictions. We'll be going back to them probably in about 2 years to ask for any new projects that we should be planning for as well. So the long range plan cycle is cyclical, and so we'll be back at it working with them very shortly to accommodate anything new that springs up. Thank you so much for your question. Looks like we have some new folks joining us. If you just joined us, we did go through our formal presentation, so we're going to stick around here until 7 to answer any questions that you might have. If you do have questions, feel free to click on the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen. It's a little rectangle that has a question mark in it, and we can answer any questions that you type in that chat box. Again, thank you all for joining us this evening for our virtual open house. If you have any questions, ask us in the question and answer box there at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Hannah and our contact information is also on the Zoom screen. Feel free to write that down and call or email us whenever you have a question or reach out through.
Jeanette, it looks like oh, I couldn't hear it. Issue with your microphone.
Are you able to hear me?
Still not hearing any audio.
I can hear you, Jeanette. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Zodia.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Maybe something happened with Hannah's mic or audio.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, I can still hear you as well, Jeanette.
Okay. We appreciate you all taking the time to join us this evening. Hannah and I will be here until 7. Feel free to type your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We do anticipate the PAG Regional Council hearing this public hearing on the 31st of July, and hopefully we'll take action to approve this plan. Plans are valid for a 4-year time frame, and then we'll be coming back to the Regional Council in 4 years with an updated plan at that time. So it is a cyclical process, and we're constantly engaging the community as well as our jurisdiction partners to get the best information we can in these plans. So we thank you so much for joining us this evening, and feel free to submit questions again, either here on the Zoom or via email or via our website. Thanks everyone once again for joining us. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in the Q&A box down at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We'll be happy to answer your questions or take your feedback. We will be providing the questions and answers to our regional council so they can see the questions that we got and the responses. We anticipate that meeting will happen on July 31st. That's a Thursday, July 31st. Thank you, Paul. Thanks for joining us. Thanks again, everyone, for participating this evening. Feel free to type any questions or comments that you'd like to share with us in the Q&A dialog box at the bottom of the screen. I'll take a brief minute just to thank Hannah for all her hard work as a project manager on the long range plan, and our team here at PAG. We have Patrick and Sheila with our outreach team, and Dustin on our air quality side, as well as Zonia, Isa, Jesse, our admin team that help put these meetings together. We appreciate your time this evening. Go back and put the QR code up real quick. This is the QR code for our website for the long range plan. We'll be here another 15 minutes or so to answer any questions. Thank you all for your attendance tonight. Thanks, Hannah, for being here with me, for the team for facilitating our meeting. Your comments and questions are important to us and important to our regional council, so we'll make sure that they are documented and shared with our officials to take into consideration with the plan. Go back to our contact information here. Feel free to reach out to Hannah or myself, or both of us, either via email or phone, or you could reach out through our website. We're happy to take feedback for the next few weeks as we gear up towards taking the plan for approval to our regional council. We do have a video that's been prepared for the long range plan available on our website. Feel free to check it out. I believe you can get to it through the QR code, but check it out at pagregion.com. Gives a nice overview of the plan and what goes into the long range planning process. We'll be around for about 10 more minutes to answer any questions or take any comments that you have. Hey, we're here for a few more minutes, so feel free to type in any last minute questions or thoughts that you might have right there in the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Thank you to everyone who's already submitted written comments and questions to us, either here at the meeting or prior to the meeting. We appreciate your participation very much. We have about 5 more minutes left. Feel free to submit your comments or questions. Any feedback is valuable to us. And of course, will be documented and shared with our regional council at their July 31st meeting. Have a few more minutes left this evening. If you have any questions, once again, feel free to type them into the Q&A dialog box at the bottom of your screen. The public comment period will close on July 13th. All questions will be presented to our regional council for their review during the approval process during their meeting on July 31st. All right, just 2 minutes left. Want to take one more opportunity to thank the team. Thank you, Hannah, Jesse, Patrick, Isa, Zonia, Dustin, Sheila for hanging in there with us this evening and for all your help facilitating this meeting and making sure we can offer these virtual opportunities to the community. Appreciate your time. Well, with no more questions, we'll conclude our open house. Thank you for your attendance and participation. Please do not hesitate to reach out if you have any questions, and be sure to visit pagregion.com for a full draft document and to submit any additional questions or comments that you might have. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful evening.